We don't have a physical leaderboard here at Perpetual Radio, but if you have been following along with some of our episodes and replies to our comments, you might know that the Kia Optima is currently our top pick in the mid-size consumer sedan segment, followed by the Honda Accord and Mazda 6. But what happens when the best car gets a plug-in hybrid electric version? Our snapshot today is on this 2018 Kia Optima PHEV EX. Now, if you want to know everything about the Kia Optima, we did review it a little bit earlier on this year. You can click the link up here on the top. We're going to be focusing specifically on what makes the plug-in hybrid electric version different and everything you need to know if you're thinking about going green. Now, this car really is very compelling. There is only two trims. This is the EX. You can get the updated trim, the EX Premium. On the outside, you lose basically the forward camera here. I don't know how they can't integrate it into the grille, but that is one of the things that you don't get no matter which trim you go on. Now, there are a few little stylistic changes with this car. You'll notice up at the front here, there really is no grille. You've got a green turquoisey kind of color, and that distinguishes it from the regular Optima. I really do like the look of it, especially as it contrasts the dark blue / greenish paint color. I think it looks quite nice. Now, you don't get fog lights on this, but it's fine. I don't see any issues with that. You do have LED running lights and headlights up front. It looks very nice. And there's not much different along the rest of the car. You do have the Eco plug-in badge along the side where your turbo badge was on the other car that we featured. And again, that green strip is along the sides at the bottom of the car. On the driver's side, you do have the door for the charger, and much like other vehicles, if you haven't actually driven a plug-in hybrid before and you're a little worried about it, when you plug the device in, it locks itself. So somebody can't come along and unlock and take out your charger while you're parked at a restaurant or something like that. So you plug it in and you're good to go. And it'll actually warn you if you've left that door open, which I think is a nice feature. Again, moving around to the rest of the car, there's nothing that's overly different from the SXL Turbo that we featured. Again, along the back of the bottom, there is a little green stripe, and you do have the Eco plug-in badge on the back here to help distinguish it from the fact that this is a slightly different car. But I have to say, it really does keep with the rest of the design language from the Optima, and I think it looks pretty good. I mean, we really liked the Optima SXL Turbo that we featured, so it makes sense that we would still like the PHEV. Now, I forgot to mention this while we were outside, but the entire time we've been recording this walk-around segment, the car's been on. That's what I love about the electric version of this, is it is so quiet. Obviously, there's no actual physical motor running right now, so you'd almost forget that it was running. Now, the inside here is pretty much identical to what the Kia Optima SXL Turbo had. So again, if you've watched that video, or if you haven't watched it yet, click the link up at the top and you can see it. It is pretty straightforward. There are a few subtle differences. First of all, the lights up here, they're not LED, and I don't know why. As far as I'm concerned, LED is supposed to draw less power, so you'd think they'd want to put it on an electric car. It doesn't have it here. The HVAC system is actually very similar to what we saw on the Kia Niro. There is a driver-only mode. There's also an econ mode, so it'll help to reduce the airflow so you get a little bit better fuel economy, and especially if you're driving on your own, it certainly helps if you only have one set of vents on instead of essentially all of them. Now, there's one other small change with this car. In the back, if you're sitting behind the driver, there is a vent that is pretty exposed. It's right along where your arm would rest, essentially on the back seat there. I don't think it would really get in the way, but it's for airflow for the battery. There's a second one underneath your feet if you're on the center and passenger right side of the car. So again, it's not going to get in the way, but those batteries are in the trunk. They take up not a whole ton of space, but certainly more than you might expect, but they need airflow, and that's to help cool them down. Now, what we're going to do with this car, we've already driven the SXL Turbo. We loved it. Now we're going to see how far and how long can we drive this car in full EV mode. So our road test today is going to be a little different than normal. We're going to be talking about exactly how much fuel economy we've saved, how much we've driven on electric mode only, and what the ride is on the road itself. And then at the end, we're going to talk about our week in review, because obviously we've still got the car. We have to drop it off in Montreal. So after our road test, we're going to give you the full numbers of how much we spent in gas, how far we went, and everything you might be interested to know about this full plug-in hybrid electric car. I know I mentioned when we were sitting in the car that the engine was running, the car was on, and that's the same case here, but I want you to try and hear this. I've noticed that the windows are so silent, you probably won't even hear them on the microphone here. Listen. oh, it's quiet. That's noticeably quiet. Like, those are things that you really notice when you're driving something like this, just how quiet it is. And I have to say that I have really enjoyed my week with this car so far. It isn't even the end of our week. We're just a little bit over halfway after driving this, you know, as much as possible. It's hard to go and find things to do when you don't really have anything that you need to do outside of the house. But we have been working pretty hard to get the mileage up on this Kia Optima PHEV. And I have to say, I just love driving it. First of all, like, oh, instant torque. You just feel it. And now there, the engine kicked on just a little bit. Even though I have put the vehicle into full EV mode, it will kick on if you go into the power bar of your, you know, fake tachometer thing here. But for the most part, we're pretty much driving everything in town in full EV mode, and it really works very well. So Kia rates this as 43 kilometers full EV range. And I have to say, it's probably a little bit better than that. We drove yesterday to Granby, and we did it in full EV mode. We got there, which was about a 37 kilometer drive, more or less. And then I was able to get a pretty good distance of the way home. I wouldn't say a quarter necessarily, but you know, probably about that, almost. At least 20% of the way home, still on full EV, and it won't drain it all the way down. It'll get to just above an eighth of a charge left, a little bit more, closer to about a quarter, because you know, it's a hybrid, right? You still need to run the engine and the batteries simultaneously, so they'll never really let you run it all the way down. But I have to say that it really worked surprisingly well. Every time we've taken it out, it's just been a real treat to drive. That's the reason why we put the Optima as our #1 car in the mid-size consumer sedan segment. I mean, I just love driving this thing, and I think that it's way better as a plug-in hybrid because you get the best of both worlds. You know, I'm driving, again, full EV mode here. It's enjoyable. The power's there if I need it. You know, pick it up, there we go. Again, just a little bit into gas just because I put not even full, maybe 50% throttle to be able to get it to go down. And sure, it's not as quick. The horsepower is not even, well, I wouldn't say remotely close, but it's not quite as close as the SXL Turbo that we featured before. But if you really need the performance, I guess you can go for that. But I mean, really, if you want performance and you like Kia, you're going to go with the Stinger. So I think something like this really makes a lot of sense for people, even if you're not driving necessarily like we are in the city all the time, because we aren't. I mean, this is just an instance where we're going within town, so we can make it no problem. But even if you aren't, even if you are doing longer distance traveling, the fuel economy is certainly significantly better. On our drive home from Montreal, we were averaging around 5.7, and that was in a full hybrid electric vehicle mode. So it was using the gas for the most part, and the hybrid motor just a little bit here and there, the electric motor when it needed it, and we averaged 5.7, which is pretty much what the Kia Niro was doing in the middle of the winter. So you can get really good fuel economy even if you're not using this as a full EV vehicle. But if you do have the opportunity to be able to use it in full EV mode, you're really going to enjoy it. Now, there's not much more I can say about the fuel economy until we've finished our full week of testing. So we're going to go over to Future Me right now on Monday and talk about the actual fuel consumption and the cost for our entire week with this vehicle. All right, so it's not quite Monday, but we did get all the numbers that we needed to when we dropped the car off at Kia in St. Laurent. At the end of the day, we drove 704 kilometers with the Optima PHEV, which is pretty average for what we do here on Test Drive, which was averaged out to 3 liters equivalent per 100 kilometers. Again, we used as much electric as we could within the city here, charged it up twice, 3 times when we were driving around, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we used 20.9 liters of fuel. That's how much we needed to put into it when we dropped the car off. It cost us 28 bucks at $1.33.9 essentially per liter for regular fuel. Now we've calculated it out that this car takes, or the Optima takes, about 2.5 hours to charge on a 240 volt circuit. So if you're going somewhere, maybe to go shopping or eat, and you take a while, and it is depleted, then you might be looking at up to about $2.50 for charge. Now, some chargers are different. Out here in Quebec, we found that a vast majority of them in I guess, premium areas cost about $1. So $1 for charge per hour. So if you are charging it for the 2.5 hours that you need, you'd be looking at about $2.50. Now, some of them, we did use one that was at a mall, and they charged a premium, requiring a $2.50 charge, but that was for the entire length of it. So you could use up to however much you really needed to get it charged up fully. So if you were there for a longer period of time, it would make more sense because you're using more charge for technically less. But since we were at the mall for about an hour, we actually ended up wasting money by using that charger. But we calculated it out. If you were to go about 100 kilometers, which is usually the way that we calculate fuel economy, liters per 100 kilometers. So for a per 100 kilometer basis on electric charge, it would cost you about $5 if you were to charge it up at the 50 kilometer mark somewhere, and then you charge it up again when you get to your 100 kilometer destination charge, about $5 for that. Now let's say you wanted to go that same 100 kilometers with your Kia Optima SXL Turbo, and the average is 8.5 liters. It means you're going to be putting in 8.5 liters at $1.33.9, which was where we're kind of getting the numbers from Monday when we filled it up. You'd be paying about $11.40 to go the same distance. So it is more cost effective to be using the plug-in hybrid version. Now again, we found when we first moved here to Quebec that there was a lot better infrastructure when it comes to electric cars. We saw more charging stations in more places than we did back in Ontario. But it wasn't until we actually started driving an electric car that we realized, even though yes, there are more of them, they're not really in places that make sense. For example, when we went to Drummondville, there was really only one area in the entire town that had an electric charging outlet. That was the one at the mall that cost $2.50 per charge. There was also a free one at a restaurant that we went to before, but it was a much slower charge. We got maybe like 5-10% of our charge out of that. And then there was another one at a restaurant. They had two. There was a super high voltage one, which would have cost $10 per hour, and then the regular one, which again was $1 per hour. So you are looking to basically plan your visits around these charging stations, especially if you have a full electric car. You really are going to be basing where you go on the charging station. So while we thought at first that the province here has a lot better infrastructure for electric cars, in reality, it doesn't. It's harder to get the ones that you actually need where you're going. If you're not driving them, you just see them and you think it's great, but it's not until you actually need them that you find out how sort of unfortunate some of the placements are for them. So now we're going to go back to me, back in the past, and talk about the rest of the car. Well, there you have it. That's how much this car cost us for an entire week. Not only did we get great fuel economy and great range out of it, but it also cost significantly less than every other car we've ever had for a full week here on Test Drive. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. We're not going to be doing our likes and dislikes. This is a snapshot. It is meant to be a shorter episode. So if you do want to know more about what we like and dislike about the Optima in general, then you can click the link right here in the top, and you can see our full episode of Test Drive Spotlight on the SXL Turbo. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you really hated it, please let us know in the comments why. And also, if you have any questions about this vehicle you'd like to know a little bit more about it, we'll do our best to answer them for you again in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We do weekly episodes here of Test Drive, and we're hoping that you like this one. So until next time, take care.